Hey, I'm here with Brian McNally. I am super excited to have this conversation with you, Brian. You know, having known you for a few years and having seen all the success you've had, literally I was so excited when they asked me to talk to you because I know a little about you. So why don't we start real quick? Tell us about yourself and where were you raised?
Yeah, so I'm excited to be here and have the conversation as well. I was born and raised in Northeast Philly, so working class town, Irish Catholic family. My dad's a longshoreman. Typical kind of lower middle class sort of family, working class. And then in 2022, I decided, or not 2022, 2002, jeez, dating myself. I went down to Florida for school, ultimately graduated from USF, and just built a life here, more or less, since then.
Awesome. So tell us real quick. I mean, your dad, a longshoreman, you saw middle class, hardworking. How did that contribute to kind of the career you chose to go into, and maybe what you started down your journey on?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say I really chose a career, to be honest with you, and that probably is a product of how I was raised, right? You're surviving most of the time. There's not a whole lot of like, hey, there's the career path I get to see, right? So, I mean, as a young kid, I would ask my dad, hey, can I come down to the waterfront and work with you? It's a steady paycheck, union job. That for me, as a young kid, that was kind of the best we hoped for, right? Cop, fireman, labor, some sort of trade, things like that. That's most of the people that were in my sphere of influence. That was their life. And so as a young kid, that was kind of the max of my aspirations, if I even had any beyond that, besides just playing sports and things like that. As I got older, high school, played sports and kind of lost my way and doing things you do to survive in that area. And but something inside me said, I got to get out of here. Like I just did. And that's when I left to go to Florida and kind of built a life. And that's when I got exposed to some other things. And I kind of just fell into the staffing industry.
Awesome.
Which, not by design, but staffing is a gritty, hardworking, hustling thing. You don't have to be a rocket science to be good at staffing. You just have to work harder than everyone else and deploy some critical thinking. So in a weird way, it's like the career found me that aligned with my core, characteristics.
So let's just step back one step. When you were in high school and you were playing sports, what sports did you play, and maybe what was one lesson you learned that kind of transitioned or kind of gave you that grittiness, that toughness to kind of be resilient as you faced kind of the obstacles in staffing?
Yeah, well, I played soccer and lacrosse mainly, played like tackle football in the street kind of stuff, but I was the captain of the team, just naturally got chosen by people to be a leader. And I think I discovered that I had a lot of leadership just naturally capability. And that was something I discovered through sport, and how that led into staffing later and the lessons that I succeeded, I guess would be broader than just my job, and the sports I played. I had to kind of come up early, right? So I was like 15 or so, and I would play sports after school. But then I would also still be like a janitor at night. So they would like leave a key for me to get into the local grade school, and I would go work and like clean floors at night before I went home to eat. So like as a 15, 16-year-old kid, I mean, I'm up early doing the school, doing the extra things, earning, and then going home and like making myself dinner, right? So that taught me just relentlessness, right? And the need that some of it was survival, but I don't think I needed to do those things really, right? I mean, I did that because I wanted to thrive. And I learned through that, just in life, that I'm stronger than I ever thought I could be. And there's really nothing that I'm okay with long hours. I'm okay with doing the hard things because it's just what I need to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
As you went to college, what did you finish? Did you get a degree?
I finished. I went to 5 colleges in 4 years, so it was my kind of claim to fame. I bounced around a lot, but I graduated with a degree in hospitality management.
Okay.
I thought I was gonna be Tom Cruise in Cocktail. I was just gonna like go down to the beach or go down to like the island, save a bunch of money bartending, come back, open a restaurant or something like that. And by my senior year, I was like, this is not a path to success or the life I want to live. I knew I wanted to earn more. And I talked to like a GM of a hotel. He's like, I work every night and weekend for the last 25 years. I'm like, no, I'm out. And that's when I just started working my network. I went home after college and just kind of tried to find someone who would give me an opportunity because I didn't really have a lot of skills.
So tell me real quick, how did you get started in the staffing business, and kind of where did you see that, when it started into a business for you? Because again, you had a lot of experience, 5 colleges or 5 universities, going through that, working nights, working hard. You've seen a lot of different things at a young age, from employment, a lot of opportunities. What was that pivotal thing that got you started in the staffing business?
Just opportunity. I was looking for anyone to give me an opportunity. I didn't care what it was, right? So through just working friends and family, got a job at a startup, which this is the part where I feel just blessed, right? I was the third guy in, so it was the owner, one other kid, and then me in this new staffing startup. And we were in like the basement of some bank building with no windows. There was like a plumber and a surveying company next to us. I mean, just the cheapest office space you could possibly find, right? And we just grinded all day, every day. I was like, again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. I didn't have a lot of skills, but it's like I was a critical thinking, hard worker. I could talk to people. So, that's how I got into staffing. But I was so blessed because I worked right next to the owner who was dealing with lines of credit, office leasing, space, all this kind of stuff, because we started growing really rapidly because of the hard work we put in. We were just successful. We grew to like 6 million in revenue in 3 years. We're like Philadelphia Fast 50 Business Journal. About a year in, I've got a team under me. I'm hiring, firing people. Like this accelerator in life and in business, right? From firsthand seeing a startup. Ultimately left that company and went to a $1 billion international staffing firm and got to see a whole nother angle. And that's how I just continued along. And through that, at that larger company, I got an opportunity in healthcare staffing. So I started off in manufacturing, like light industrial stuff. It was just grimy. You're showing up at warehouses and, 5 a.m. trying to get, meet clients and stuff. The other piece was healthcare. It was all long lines nationally for hospitals selling medical record coding services. It was just a massive transition for me.
That would be a major transition because, again, as you get into one industry then to another, that's such a different hiring process and education, what they're looking for. As you got into the big company, right, and you had bigger roles, bigger opportunities, what was the hardest transition for you? Where did you feel like you learned the most? What was the hardest thing they had to go through in that phase?
Patience. Because we moved fast. At startups, you move. You solve problems. You make shit happen, right? I'm in a $1 billion organization where we had to have 6 meetings on what we're going to talk about in the next meeting. And it would make me crazy. There was, accountability was challenged, all this kind of stuff. A lot of people just kind of floating around, keeping their jobs, the whole politics and all these sort of things. And I had to learn how to not fight every fight. Because to me, it was crazy. Every time I see something wrong, I'm like, well, let's fix this. I'm like, no, we can't just do that. I'm like, well, why not? You know what I mean? It's broken. We all agree it's broken. Let's fix it right now and get back to making money and doing what we do best. And that was a challenge for me. But I learned patience. I learned how to choose my battles, how to operate within a larger, highly matrixed organization, which was good. I took that experience. I always wanted to learn. I'm always seeking growth through learning. And that's in that job, I learned healthcare. I got my first exposure to it. They brought in a little bit of healthcare consulting into that business. There was a whole ICD-10 transition. It was a massive overhaul. And it wasn't the smartest thing to do from a career perspective. I was a pretty successful salesperson, just focusing on selling coding services. But the second they gave us an opportunity to sell consulting, I'm like, yeah, I'll try it. I'll do it, right? I want to learn that. And it honestly hurt me in the short term financially, but I gained skills and experience and knowledge. And then I took that to go work for a consulting firm in the healthcare space. And got to ride around the country with a former hospital CEO and a COO, right? An insurance company COO. So I'm getting like the best education you could possibly get. We're flying all over the country. We're talking to other executives. I'm getting a peek into the boardroom conversation, right? And how it works and strategy, and just soaked up like a sponge. And then took that to yet another job where we started doing business process outsourcing for the revenue cycle.
And so you started your own company, is that right?
After that.
Mm-hmm. So
I took all that knowledge and education that's how I knew what company to start and that I could do it.
See, and I think this is the pivotal thing that everyone needs to understand, right? It's the lessons we learn in life, the grind, the hustle, the thirst for knowledge, right? You take all of that experience and then that creates the opportunity. When the opportunity comes, you can seize that.
Yeah.
So tell us now, how did you start? You had all the ingredients. How did you put together the recipe for success?
Yeah, well, I got to credit my business partner quite a bit. He took the risk before me. We had talked about doing it for a while, and I was like, I want to just stack a few more chips before I take the leap. He was impatient. I was like, I'm going. So like March of 2015, he started the company and just started going out. Now I was working with him and having conversation just as a good friend, right? I'm like, hey, I think this case management line, like this is a burgeoning opportunity for us. I think it'll work, maybe try that. And he hit a little vein and started getting his first big client. And by December of that year, I'm like, let's go. I'm coming in. And we just did it together. We ultimately built a really successful company by following our values. We had an amazing why, right? Like we were at these big bureaucratic companies. It was making us crazy. They weren't really client focused. It was just on the bottom line and, making more money for the business. I'm like, yeah, if you actually focus on the people you're trying to help, you might do better. And we just wanted to live our values more or less and set up our life of freedom. So we're like, hey, how can we do something on our own terms, living, our values and change our lives forever? Like, this is it. Let's do it. Right. And so what we did was set out to be like really easy to work with, value added partner. And we built a culture internally of like a company we would want to work for. So we set a goal, $20 million, 5 to 7 years, and an exit. And then we back engineered the business basically from there, right? As to how we want to live our life and how we want the culture to be. So we had a saying, just do what's right, not what's common. And that's how we treated our clients, that's how we treated our people internally. We aligned variable compensation with the whole team to support the goal. So they were on board with, us selling the company ultimately because they were going to get a piece of the equity based on their performance. And then we just had that culture of accountability and flexibility and, doing what's right. And we hit rocket fuel.
That's amazing. Was there any part of the business when, now that you said, hey, we knew what our goal was, we had it, it was measurable, there were KPIs, we're going to do what's right, not what's common. I love that. What a great, phrase and motto. Was there anything did COVID help or hurt? Were there any of the things that maybe?
Oh yeah,
both. Okay, yeah, sure. So walk us through like
a lot of growing pains.
What pivot or what before you had your exit? What was it that kind of got you over the hump to make the exit? Why did you decide to exit? I mean, I knew you had a goal, but what was the opportunity there?
So a few things, right? So we started off with a goal, which I think is more than most do, right? We knew exactly what our strategy was, and we even knew kind of the profile of the type of company we thought would acquire us. And we designed the company in such a way to be a bolt-on for those companies, right? And I think that's a really important thing that I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. They're not doing that. They realize it far too late. And that's one of the reasons we were able to grow so fast is we were so locked in and clear as to where we were going. So every decision we made supported that goal. There was no missteps. There was no wandering down a path and having to come back. Like 100%, we knew exactly what was happening. So that's really important. Strategy-wise was also really important. So we were in the staffing space. It's very commoditized. But we developed a strategy where we recognized, this is where you got to be curious and continue to learn, because we invested heavily in education as to what our clients really needed beyond just our bodies and the people to help. We understood what the KPIs they were trying to move internally, and how our staff correlated to an improvement in those areas. So, and that our best projects came from performance improvement initiatives that were driven at the executive level for those types of projects. So we tied our services to the performance of the organization, not just a cost center essentially for interim staffing, which is a huge just mind shift from a strategy perspective. That ultimately led us to building relationships with some of the top consulting firms in the country that were supporting the hospitals. So we got walked in as a trusted advisor from the trusted advisors to the executive team, which just was massive to our acceleration.
What an awesome pivot, right? To come in and say, I'm selling to being sold. Now you're being introduced and they're telling you basically have to use these guys because we trust them. They have the same values.
And the key there is creating value.
Yes.
And I try to teach people all the time. And that's what my old companies were missing, right? It was about them making money. I'm like, I just want to focus on how I help them. Mm-hmm. And in there, I will make money. And by helping them achieve their goals and just looking to give value to everyone, right?
Awesome. Yeah. So how long ago did you have your exit? And walk me through kind of the exit. I don't need numbers, but like walk me through here's the thing I hear from a lot of guys when they exit. So I'll ask two things. Walk me through the exit. And the second question is, what did you have to learn, or what was the difference when you woke up and didn't have a job or didn't have that same routine? Yeah,
absolutely. So the exit was interesting, right? So like I said, we kind of knew our target market ahead of time, and I and my business partner kind of back engineered an introduction to a CEO of a target company. We were so focused on culture. We talked about. I mean, for me, it's foundational. I think it's often overlooked, and if it's not overlooked, it's poorly implemented, right? So, we had an amazing culture, and we made promises to our people, and I wasn't going to ever, go back on that. I said, we'll do our best to align you with people that we think will support you the way that we do. And we found a CEO and some people that we knew, competitors, that we thought aligned really well with complementary services, and we built a relationship with them. And then we engaged a broker to just help us manage the deal. And so we were there. They were a recently acquired platform company of a private equity firm, about a $500 million strategic buyer. We were about on our pace to doing $50 million that year in revenue, so we're a nice little bolt-on to their revenue cycle division, doubled the division for them. And we learned a lot through the exit, right? I mean, we went relatively unscathed for the first bunch of years of our business. And then as we're trying to exit, like lawsuits from employees are coming out of the blue. There's like this tax issue with our operating agreement that we didn't even know was an issue, right? A class action lawsuit came out of the blue, just wild stuff that, where's this all coming from, right? And it's almost like the universe knew they weren't going to make it easy on us. But we pushed through. You're running the business, you just do. I mean, going through an exit is brutal. It's a second full-time job, essentially, right? But did that, got through it. That day, I wept like a baby because this is like, and it wasn't financial. It was this culmination, this release of this pressure that I carried on my weight I carried every day for 7 years, right? It was exhausting at times, right? Because, you're not keeping a lot of that money. It's all going back into this business. And, people thought we were successful, and I'm like, no, not until it sells, right, at the end of the day. So that release was great. It was amazing. It lasted about a month. I was euphoric. And then I kind of got depressed and realized that I need a drag in the sleigh. Like, I need a purpose in life. And that's, I think, what that excitement was, because it was like achieving a purpose. And without that, I think there's a lot of people out there who think that exit's going to give them everything they need and life's going to be great. And it can buy you some nice dinners and some nice vacations. It's not going to bring you happiness, that's for sure. That has to come from yourself. Right?
I love that. And I know that, one of the things that's been intriguing for me is to watch you be successful, but set the same kind of KPIs personally now as you've transitioned from running the staffing company, having all that pressure. Now you've got personal weight, fight goals, family goals. So share with us, what are those 2 or 3 KPIs personally and with your family, and maybe the next chapter, because I'd love to hear what you're thinking next.
Yeah, it's funny. So I started doing this thing where I design my life, my priorities in top 3 for the year, every year. And when I was running the business, it was my business and my health and then my family. People are like, you put your family third? I'm like, yeah, I did. It's not that I didn't see them or spend time with them, but if I use it as a decision-making tool, so that I don't have to think about these things, right? And you can do anything for a period of time. I wouldn't want to put my family third for my entire life, but for a season to help ultimately benefit them and their future, yeah. It was a discussion I had with my family, and my health then came because at that time, I wasn't serving the business or my family unless I was physically capable of doing it and staying healthy. And I think that's a really important foundation for me. Now it's shifted. Business is not even in the top 3, It's my health, because I can't serve anyone without it, my family, and then leisure time with my friends. Like that's that. And then 4 is slowly building a plan for business. So if I don't satisfy those other things, I'm not coming to BA, that's for sure, right? Like I coach in soccer, I'm doing cheer. My daughter's taking her to cheer practice, seeing friends. I'm getting out, enjoying my life because I'm making that a priority, and my health, and training to do an amateur MMA fight. So that's my next big drag.
I was going to say, so tell me, what's the goal? When's that going to happen? And what are the odds? Because I want to bet.
So hopefully this upcoming April we'll do it. Trying to lock down an opponent. It's kind of, the amateur fight game is not, I don't want to glamorize this thing. I'm every bit of an amateur, right? I mean, this is not the UFC going on. This will be probably done at like a strip club at noon on like a Saturday, right? So it's going to be pretty wild stuff, but it'll be fun.
As long as you have your clothes on, we're good.
Yeah. As far as the odds go, come on, man, you got to put your money on me. I'm coming in there like a savage. I've been training for a long time for this. I'm ready to do the work. So it's just a life goal. And I look at life in, I think I don't want to work all the way, get to the end, and then try and relax. It's like, no, my kids are only going to be this young once. I will only be this young once. So beyond business, like, how do I achieve these personal things that bring me fulfillment and happiness in my life? And so the other thing I'm doing besides training for the fight, and post-fight I'm going to dive back into it more, but I've got the manuscript already written for a book. around this concept. It's still a loose concept on the title, but dream, design, do is something I talk about a lot in all aspects of your life, right? So how to be wealthier, how to focus on your wellness and your well-being, right? And
Love it.
it's a journey I went through and struggled with in my life. I went from a very unhappy, struggling, non-entrepreneur, just a guy in the 9-to-5 in the cube farm who hated his life and was out of shape and was mean to his wife, right? Or not the best, maybe not mean, but certainly wasn't the best husband I could have been, to someone who's happy and healthy and like I feel like a ball of positivity all the time, right? And so how do you achieve those things? My relationship with my wife better than it's ever been, my children, all these things, my friends and family, and how do you achieve that? And it's, I had a dream and I put a plan in place and I did the work. And I do that in every aspect of my life. That's the same with this fight, right? I have this weird dream. I've never done martial art in my life till I'm 40 years old and all of a sudden I'm gonna get in a cage and do an MMA fight? Yeah. Because I have this dream, and then I got with the right people, put a plan in place, and now I'm doing the work to be ready to do it, right? And same with my relationships, everything in my life. And I want to teach people how to do that.
And I love this because we could interview you for an hour, and I can go on in the fight, the strategies. What are what are your strengths, weaknesses, and because is it boxing, is it ground, is it fight, is it wrestling, is it, martial arts. I think the key is this: it's the measurables that you've put in your life, right? It's the dream, design, and do. What a great 3 things that you can measure, see. And again, to me, being a family man and looking at, faith is an important part. What do you do? So I think from Board of Advisors perspective, you literally bring out the best in the group, because that's kind of what Board of Advisors, it's a family. We come here, it was a dream of Mike's to build this awesome community. There's a lot of things that are happening where he's designed it, and it ebbs and flows just like a business, right? Yeah. And as you do it and you come, you get more out of it. In closing, what would you say? I know that you don't need to be here. You're here because you're looking for the next thing or kind of getting ideas and stuff. What would you say is the value of being a member of Board of Advisors, and like why would this be an important role or part of your life at this phase?
Yeah, a couple different things, right? So I think we talk a lot about business and deals and things along those lines, but I'll tell you one of the things that I noticed rather quickly at BA that keeps me coming back more than anything is the relationships and the quality of the human beings that I meet with, not just business people. I mean, there's people I've talked to for a half an hour, and we're having deep conversations about our relationships with our wives and how we improve that and things that are important to us beyond just making dollars and the impact we want to have on the world. And you don't have that conversation on a Sunday watching the game with the boys, right? You have that in a room like this where there's motivated people who, have good hearts and not only want to be successful for themselves and their family, but they want to impact the world, and I feel strongly that people, like entrepreneurs, can change the world if we really do. And the love in the room and the depth of conversation and this true desire to be of value to each other, that alone would bring me in just for the connection, right? And then you talk about business, it's like, hey, I have a real problem. Can you help me with this? And there's someone in the room who's going to have a real answer, who's been there, done that, and can give you the real tactical solution. And that combination, I think, is really important.
I think that's awesome. And I think the one thing I want to give you a shout out on is in every aspect of that room, right? Great people, great things. You have a unique experience, success, exit. I mean, every one of those things becomes super valuable. So becoming the mentor that you are for lots of other people, what a great place to do it, in a place like this, Board of Advisors, where you've seen things you're willing to share, help people in their strategic journey. So anyway, I really appreciate your time today, and I'm really excited to see what you do next, and I'm all in. Let's go. Let's go,
baby.
Let's see you take them down.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate it being here.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.